Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 97. How to deal with unhappy customers.
Eek. Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Small Biz Life.
Yes!
My name's Kristen Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And we are a husband and wife team of small business owners who are on this journey with you that we call the Small Biz Life. Because we know that there are kids and cats and doorbells and lots of things that are keeping you from doing what you need to get done.
Yeah.
And so what we tried to do is, we try to do some research, come out with podcasts that help you deal with the issues that we all face as small business owners and help you, cut some of that crap out of your business so you can focus on what's important.
Yeah, because whether you're online or offline, there are common issues and problems that we all have. And sometimes we don't even know we have those problems because we don't even know about them. And that's kind of what we're here for.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if you're a new listener, we're so glad that you chose to join us this week. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back to be with us again. If you're new, just to tell you a little bit about us, I am a CPA.
And I am an IT guru.
Yeah, basically, you're our IT.
I don't know what to call myself anymore now that I do this full time.
All right, so here's a call to action. If you guys have a suggestion for what I should
call myself.
Yeah, there you go. You can do that in the Facebook group, where we have hundreds of small business owners who, just like you, are trying to make it through every day and grow their business and be more successful. You can go to facebook.com/group/smallbizlife and join us there. Yeah. Or you can shoot us an email, support@smallbizlife.com, and help us come up with a new title for Jeffrey, because he used to be an IT analyst, and now that he's working for our company full time. I mean, you're the chief of business systems.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that
doesn't have much of a ring.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Especially when you're trying to explain it, because it kind of sounds lofty.
Yeah. But really, what we try and do is Chris and I have a lot of experience working with businesses on various sizes, on not only the accounting side, but how to improve the business processes, how you get things done better, and then how to use technology to do that. And that's really sort of the areas we like to cover. And then, of course, there's life because, you can't escape life.
Exactly. So, we thought that this would be a great episode to do. This is something that we actually talked about a little bit in the group. And we thought that it would make a great podcast episode.
Yeah, and to be honest, full disclosure, this is something I used to dread. I failed. I've got a call from an upset customer. I have failed the world. I have failed the city. I failed everything.
You have failed the city. Bonus points if you get that reference. Yeah, we're also a little bit geeky too. Yeah. So just so you know. Yeah, this isn't something, nobody's like, yay, I have unhappy customers.
But it means you have probably more than one customer.
Yeah, this is something that every single business owner experiences. I think it's really important to start with the fact that there is no way that you are going to have 100% customer satisfaction. No. Even if you look at, the companies that win the JD, Power Associates, highest customer satisfaction, they're at 98%.
Unless they're an insurance company, that's 22.
Yeah, well, but
I'm joking, I don't know.
But you're never going to get 100%.
No.
In fact, if you have 100%, people are going to get skeptical that your reviews aren't true.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've heard about in Amazon. If you have too many 5-star reviews and not any 1 or 2-star reviews, people will be suspicious that the reviews are faked.
Right. And I even when I go to Yelp or if I'm on like Facebook looking at reviews, like, if there are 25 5-star reviews, you kind of look at it a little funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I remember when I have a decent sized education YouTube channel, and I remember when I got my first like negative comment, and it was like, woohoo! Awesome.
Success.
Because that's the thing. It's like, I don't want 100% likes. I don't want all positive, because then people kind of start to wonder what's wrong.
And really, it's fair, because no matter how good you are not going to be the correct answer for everyone out there. Even if you're giving them the right advice, maybe they need to hear it in a different way or deliver it in a different way. But there's just no way. There's 7 billion people in the world. You can't service everyone at a perfect level.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to talk about how to deal with unhappy customers, both from your, like, for a healthy perspective for you, but also, how to try to resolve the issue. Yeah. Okay, so where do we start?
In beds.
Okay, so you have to understand that Jeff was in the Army.
And IT does this too. We come up with acronyms and they mean stuff.
Right. And he worked for UPS and he works in IT. And all 3 of those environments are very acronym friendly, And
this is a great one, because who can't remember beds?
Yes. But see, I would be more like BEPS, but I guess. Okay. So let's go through your acronym, which may or may not be grossly inappropriate. No, it's fine. Go ahead. So
what I wrote down on the paper is inappropriate, but the acronym is great, because the first one is you have to breathe. The first thing, even if you've been in business for a while, hopefully you don't get bombarded with complaints. Because if you're getting that much business where you're getting 100 complaints a day, hopefully you could pay someone to take care of those calls for you. Zendesk or some other service. But, take a moment and breathe. It's not the end of the world. You have not failed this city. It's okay.
Well, and the other thing too is that I think that you need to, if you respond to an unhappy customer from that place of either anger, embarrassment, it's not going to be a good response.
Yeah, they will sense it.
No, absolutely. You've got to calm down. And, if it's something where you've got to get up and walk away and breathe and maybe go for a walk, you don't want to take a tremendous amount of time to respond, but you also don't want to respond when you're in a bad emotional place.
Yeah. And if they call you and you pick up the phone and you give your customers that kind of access, you need the ability to flip that switch. Literally just close your eyes, help them, breathe out, and you have to be there. If you give them that level of access, you have to go from anger or embarrassment at those situations to, okay, I need to get to this methodology to fix it.
Right, exactly.
And it all starts with the E, which is empathy. Even if they're completely wrong, even if it's just all the customer, you have to come out from their perspective. There's something they're not seeing or connecting with correctly. And you know what? If it's true for them, it'll be true for other people. So even if it's like they just can't figure out how to utilize the online course you have, and now they're railing you because they're mad because your course sucks, is probably what they're going to tell you. You have to sit there and try and empathize right away that they're just frustrated because they desperately want the help. The thing that you've done for them, they really want to work. And it's not working for them right now.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. Even people who work for larger businesses. I always try to tell my students, think about it from the other perspective. And I think a lot of times we get very defensive in these situations. And, you have to remember, like, you are an expert at what you do, right? Whether it's, especially if you are, if you're setting up online courses, even if that's not your thing, you still know the systems pretty well.
Yeah.
And so I think, sometimes we look at it and, somebody will email us and be like, well, you said you were going to cover this and you never did. And you could get like really angry, or you could, think about it from the person's perspective and say, wait a minute, they don't know the system as well as I do. Let me help them find it.
Yeah. Or maybe it's a dripped course and it just hasn't come out yet. You're like, oh, that's week 4. Don't be upset. Don't be condescending. Empathize and understand that the reason they bought it from you is not to call you and be a jerk to you on the phone. The reason they bought either the product or service from you is because they think it will make them better, even if it's just more enjoyment in their life. They think they're going to drive something good from this. And right now it's not working. And what you want to do is bridge that gap for them.
Right. So, but the more you can kind of, you can see from their perspective, I think the better your response will be.
Yeah.
And that's something that Jeff is really good at. He's probably one of the most empathetic people I know. And so, it's just something that you're really good at. It blows my mind.
Yeah. No, I remember a story where I was talking to my older sister. I was in the service at the time. And so I'm like this young bachelor guy who's drinking and partying up around the world, going back to Indiana to have some, time with the sister and her family. And like she had some friends over and like they were talking. And then at some point, me and my sister were talking about kids. And my sister looks at me and she's like, you shouldn't know that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I don't even remember specifically what we were talking about, but she didn't feel like I should have the wisdom or knowledge that I was giving to her in our discussion. And not that I was making her life necessarily better. My sister, she's the baby whisperer. So, I have no real advice to offer her there, but she was impressed that I had some knowledge and some wisdom that for this guy who's drinking probably too much and having a little too much fun in life at this point, probably shouldn't have that level of information. But I did, and that's because I could listen and I could understand where people were coming from. I don't know why, but I'm sure most people, if you try, you can improve. I'm a belief that, I'll never be Michael Jordan in basketball because he has a super amount of talent and practice really hard. If I practice as hard as him, I still wouldn't be as good as him, but I'd be a heck of a lot better than I am now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an amazing skill to watch. If you need help with this, contact Jeff.
Contact Jeff.
Okay. So the next thing that you need to do, and I might have put this ahead of the empathy one, but you were trying to go for your acronym. Right. So, do not take it personally. And I think, we always believe this is kind of part of, the breathing thing, but you had to have your acronym. We always, whatever our product or service is, like, this is our baby, this is our thing. We have created it, we have nurtured it, we have put it out into the world, and we have said, like, look at this. I created this thing. Isn't it amazing?
And it's a good thing. It's going to help people. It will deliver them value, whether it's a product or a service. It's especially in a small business. You're not very far as a business owner from the product development.
And for somebody to come out and say, you have a problem with the service, you have a problem with the product, our first reaction is to act like a parent. Don't attack my child. And no, it really is, right? Like, that's your first reaction. You can't take it personally. No. You have to create some separation between you and the product or service you deliver.
Yeah. And this is also where the empathy comes in good too, because realize that most people, especially when they're frustrated, aren't good at communicating what they mean. And usually they lash out and it sucks. This is stupid. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to rip me off? They will probably outreach in ways that are negative. And this isn't 100% true. Some people are very cool when they call. But the thing is, if you go at the point of view that when you get a complaint, it's going to be the person who tells you it sucks. If you're expecting that they tell you it sucks, your baby sucks right now, bad baby. Your baby's bad. If you take that approach, those ones that call who are like, now it must be something I'm doing. There's something I'm missing here, but I don't get this, or it does not seem to work. But I think, those people will seem awesome.
And I think something that really helped me deal with unhappy customers, if you are a customer that stays cool when you're pissed off, it really helps you deal when you're on the other side.
Yeah, I guess what she's saying is when you're making this phone call yourself, remember the person on the other side of the phone is probably like you.
Mm-hmm. No, I swear to God, it really works. So like if you get angry at your cable company, okay, which I know, like that's why I'm using that experience, because everybody has that issue on a regular basis. When you call, are you the kind of person that like yells and screams and stomps your feet? Or are you the kind of person that you're calm, you ask how the other person is, you hope they're having a good day, and you have a conversation?
Yeah.
It's really interesting that if you are that second type of person, or you become that second type of person, because trust me, I used to be the first type of person. And I think when I started my own business, you kind of realize like, hey, this is just another person that is dealing, it's not their fault my cable doesn't work. I think it really helps with the empathy thing.
Yeah, I think it's good practice. And to be honest, like if I call, sometimes I am really frustrated. And usually if I know I'm really frustrated when I get them on the phone because it's been 17 hours on hold, which does not help Jeffrey's frustration levels, I usually tell them, I'm sorry, I'm very frustrated right now. If I get upset with you, I apologize in advance. Right. And a lot of times that in itself will just help relax me down, but it's good practice for being on the other side of the phone call. Because especially like if you're calling some big company, that person, the first person you get a hold of probably can't do much. But try and calm you. And there's usually, those frequently asked questions. Those are the problems the people you initially contact usually can solve.
Right.
In a small business, that's not true. But in a larger business, and not that even that much larger, that's usually not true anymore.
So, that works really well. That's worked really well for me in the past. And then the last thing in this acronym is to solve. Right. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of the episode talking about is how do you solve their problem or attempt to.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can't solve their problem.
Nope.
It is outside the scope of what you do. It is outside the scope of the services that you have agreed to provide. And some people, God love them, are just miserable people.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing that you can do. So, keep that in mind as you are attempting to solve the problem. Okay? All right. So, you've got this customer who comes to you, either, maybe they show up at your store, or they pick up the phone and call, or they shoot you an email, or they leave you a bad review on your Facebook page. What do you do?
Yeah.
How do you start? So, we talked about like how to kind of deal with it like emotionally, right, as you're going through it. Yeah. But now let's talk about how you actually deal with the customer. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to acknowledge the fact, this kind of goes back to the empathy thing. You want to acknowledge the fact that you understand that they are not happy. Okay. It's really funny in, when tech support started going over to India, one of the first things that they taught the tech support people to do is to, say to a customer on the phone, don't worry, there's nothing to be worrying about. And I remember I used to get so angry. And it's funny because my clients would get so angry because your problem is being completely dismissed, right? They're not acknowledging, yes, we understand that you have a problem. Yes, we understand that you're worried. We're very sorry, and we're going to do what we can to fix it. They would just say, no, you have nothing to be worried about. There's no problem. It's fine.
And you never, ever want to dismiss someone's problem out of hand. The first thing you have to, you don't want to acknowledge that you're at fault because you might not even be, you don't know yet, but you want to say, oh, I'm very sorry to hear. It sounds like you're having a problem. And you want to repeat back what you think they just told you.
Yep.
Because you want to get on the same ground, the same level as them, because usually when someone says they have a problem, they're not at the root of what the problem is. They're either telling you a symptom that's annoying them, or they're just going, it sucks.
Or they're telling you how they feel.
Yeah. I'm very sorry that you think it sucks, but let's try and find out what isn't working for you and see if we can make it work better.
Right. So, step one, acknowledge the fact that they're not satisfied, acknowledge the fact that they're upset, because that actually will help de-escalate things.
Yeah.
If somebody's really angry. If you ignore the fact that somebody is angry or unhappy, the call is more likely to escalate faster, or the emails will escalate faster. So that's a really good technique. And then, the second step is you're listening to the issue that they're having. If they're telling you what the issue is, you're repeating it back to make sure you have it correct. And if not, then you're trying to get to the root. So you're kind of doing a little bit of even if you're not in technology, you're trying to do a little bit of tech support to try to see, okay, what is it exactly that you're having trouble with? And
usually the best thing here is to start with what they're telling you and try and work backward to what can cause that. So you're trying to work backwards to get to where they're no longer having a problem. And that will work for non-software, but working backwards from the problem they're saying will typically get you to a root cause.
Right. So, I had a client today, and it wasn't like a disgruntled client, but a client sent me a message today and said, it's time for property taxes. And I was like, okay. And it kind of for a second, I was confused. And then I wrote back and I said, okay, well, the property tax form that you fill out is typically due November 1st, but maybe they changed it. Is it that your taxes are due, or that the form we have to fill out is due? And the client messaged me back and went, oh no, just the tax payment. Oops, sorry. I was like, okay. Right. So that's something where I kind of had to diagnose and say, okay, well, I know that shouldn't be due right now, but I do know that the payments are due now.
Yeah.
So you kind of sit there and go, how can I diagnose the problem that my customer is having when I don't think they're having the problem that they think they're having?
Yeah.
Right. And how do you fix that? So, once you get to the root, and this is something that could take a really long time. Okay. One of my favorite tech support stories is from a friend of ours who he used to work at a help desk, and he got a call from somebody within his organization who was having trouble with their mouse, and their mouse wasn't clicking. And I mean, he was on the phone with this person for an hour, I think, because the mouse just wasn't, the person was clicking and the mouse wasn't working. And eventually he figured out, he asked the person, where is your mouse? And the person said, well, I'm holding it up against the screen and I'm clicking and it's not working.
And it was a simple fact where the person didn't realize that when he was saying, and this is common parlance, so it really shocked them. But, when they're saying, put the mouse on this icon, instead of moving the cursor, which most people would do, they were literally lifting the mouse and putting it on the screen on the icon and left clicking. But if the cursor isn't there, it doesn't matter.
Right. But so it's so that's kind of like an extreme example. And, if you think about okay, if your mouse isn't working, what do? You unplug the mouse, you plug it back in, you turn on you reboot the computer, you go make sure that it's working in the devices. I would never think to ask, are you putting your mouse against the screen? Right? Because I think most of us think everybody knows that the mouse goes on the desk.
Yes. And he's probably had that conversation and fixed hundreds of problems saying, put the mouse on this and do that.
Right. So, we tell you that story to tell you that sometimes getting to the root of the problem might take you some time. And sometimes you have to think outside the box. Try to understand, especially if you're dealing with technology, and increasingly more of us are, right? As we've got digital products and things like that. What is this person's level of sophistication? Yeah. I've had people buy digital products from Accounting in Focus and email me and say, I haven't gotten a tracking number for my shipment. And I said, oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you thought we were shipping something to you, but this is a digital product. Here's how you access it. And you can download it and print it out yourself, but you have instant access. You don't have to wait until it's being shipped. So sometimes when somebody's kind of, they approach you with things like that, spin it as a positive. Oh, you don't have to wait for it. You get instant access right now.
Yeah. And the other thing to keep in mind is take advantage of these calls, because sometimes it tells you maybe I need to explain stuff better to them on the checkout page. Maybe I need to do something a little bit different to, one, help reduce these kind of calls, but to offer more value to the people who become your customers.
Yep, exactly. So once you've kind of come to the root of it, you want to come up with a quick resolution. Now, sometimes that resolution may not be what the client wants, but it's what your policy is.
Yeah. So, I think the big thing is you have to keep in mind when you have a circumstance where they demand something that especially goes against like the terms of the purchase. Let's say like you're selling something via subscription, and they've paid for it for 12 months. And then all of a sudden, next year they're calling you, complaining that they thought it was a one-time purchase. Go back and make sure that you clearly state that this is a monthly charge. And, if it says that, just say, well, it was here. I would probably refund them the current month, but they're not going to get 11 months back because it took them 12 months to figure out that they were being charged monthly for something.
Right, exactly. And that's why it's important to have clear terms and conditions, especially when you're selling things on the web. And I think that's an important thing too, where you acknowledge, say, I'm sorry that you missed this information, but you can find it here and here, Yeah. And this, we would have notified you that we were billing your cards. So you should have gotten an email every month. I'm sorry if you didn't see those. However, our policy is we'll just refund you the last 30 days.
Yeah. The thing is too, a lot of times they're frustrated when they're talking to you. And sometimes it's going to cost you money when it's not even your fault. But it's usually better to leave that in the mouth, because if they then go to your Facebook page and talk about how horrible you are, and then you can sort of quickly rehash some of that conversation, but you always want to leave those threads with a positive thing from you at the end, even if it's not the resolution they want.
And, a lot of people ask me, like, what do you do if, somebody goes to your Facebook page, and starts complaining or gives you a bad review? I really think, the best way to respond to that is to acknowledge that they're upset, apologize, and then try to pull them off of Facebook. You don't want to have a public argument with a customer. Invite them to email you, send them a private message, do something to pull them off of your public page. Because
really what you want to show is the next person who sees that to go, oh, they had a problem? Oh, wait, it looks like someone's trying to help them at least. So you want to leave a positive impression with yourself, even when there's a problem, even if maybe it was your fault and something bad happened. Like for some reason, the one-time charge of $1,000 went through twice. Whoops.
And, I've seen that when people have Facebook pages that they're not responding to any of their reviews, positive or negative. I think you thank people for positive reviews, and I think that you show concern and show the public that, hey, I am, you can even tell them like, hey, I'm going to send you a private message, look out for it. You're showing the public that you care. Okay. And I think that's really important. So once, you've come up with that resolution and you and the customer agree on something, you want to make sure that you fix it quickly.
Yeah. And sometimes too, this can be difficult because if you have to fix something and it's going to take you, 2 hours inside of your website to do things to get it correct, you typically don't want to get off the conversation, especially if they're on the phone with you, until you physically resolved it. However, in a circumstance like that where it's going to take you 2 hours, it's going to take this much time, do you want to stay here while I fix it? Or, can I just email you or call you back when the problems should be resolved? So you don't necessarily want to keep them on the phone the whole time, but you want to stay with them, by at least getting back to them when it's actually physically taken care of, to make sure that it was actually resolved. Because the worst thing is that they go back in and it still does not work. Maybe it's in a different way or whatever, but you want to make sure that it's now working for them.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make it right, but you don't want to be a pushover.
No.
And I think a lot of times as business owners, we want so desperately to make people happy. And I think this is just human nature in general, that we give away the kitchen sink in order to make people happy. And that's just not with unhappy customers. I think that's in general.
As humans. Yeah.
Yeah. As humans, we don't establish boundaries with clients. And then we get really upset when we get text messages from clients at 3:00 in the morning. You have to establish those boundaries. And that's why, having terms and conditions, having contracts with all of your clients, what this agreement entails and what it does not, it's very important to not leave things ambiguous. Because the more ambiguity you have in your contracts, the more wiggle room people have to try to walk all over you.
And it's funny too, because I did know people who liked those kind of contracts because of the wiggle room they gained from it. I didn't really commit to that. But the problem is, if you leave it open-ended, they can wiggle as much as you can.
Be very specific about what you do, what you don't do, the service that the person's buying, and what they're not. That's really important. And recognize that sometimes you have to, and I'm going to use the word that they like to use in my industry now, you need to disengage with customers. The word fire has come under fire, I guess. But sometimes you need to just say, you know what? I'm not going to do business with you anymore.
I was calling my last job when they stopped calling the people who were being laid off, and started calling them the displaced workers.
Yes. But sometimes you have to do that. It's harder to do that when you have a brick and mortar store because people can just walk into your store. Are you willing to kick them out of your store? Whereas, if you're a service provider or if you're online, it is a little bit easier to, disengage with customers.
Now, remember, too, depending on the way the contract was written, if you're a service provider, you might be required to give some or all of the money back. Depends on how you write the contracts. Another reason why you have to be careful and clear that if for whatever reason that contract is ended early, what happens?
Yeah, and I think that that's really key because I've seen a lot of posts lately from graphic designers who were doing work, couldn't make the customer happy, and then the designer who did all of this work and all of these revisions ends up giving back all the money.
No.
That's craziness. You can't make everybody happy.
Nope.
And that's why, I think it's really important in your contracts to be very specific. I will give you, 4 drafts and you get 3 revisions. So you pick one of the 4 and, I will revise one of those for you 3 times. And at that point, I have fulfilled my end of the bargain, whether you decide to use the designs or not.
That's your choice.
Right. And I know that seems a little bit harsh. But, the problem is, especially for designers, people will nitpick stuff to death, and at some point you have to say, I have fulfilled my obligation to you. I have done the work that you have asked me to do.
And that's to say sometimes maybe you do a fifth one because it's like there's just like one thing, but you got to be careful with that because some people will take advantage and they're just trying to get more work out of you. And other times it's like some people just can't be satisfied.
And I think it's important, like if you do say like there are 3 revisions, I think when before you start the 3rd revision, when you send back the 2nd one, say, if you have any additional changes, please know.
They need to be here.
Right. This is your last revision unless you would like to pay X amount of dollars for an additional revision.
Yeah.
And that will kind of, the average customer will go, oh, I better make sure that I really put everything that I want into this last revision.
And especially in like that kind of scenario, I'll probably be very clear every time. Okay, this is the end of your first edition. This is the changes you've asked for. You have 2 additional revisions left. Add the scarcity the same way you would sell people. And the other thing to keep in mind here is too, when you're trying to sell them, especially on like a micro continuity or like a subscription kind of site, don't try and, we're always trying to make it sound like it's the most value. So like if the first month is free or make sure that they understand that there is a cost coming up afterwards and be clear with what that cost is.
Yep, exactly. So, we hope that this really helps you. We'd love, your feedback on this. If you had unhappy customers, what have you done that's been really successful? Any tips you have would be awesome.
Yeah.
Share with the community. The best way to do that is to join our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/smallbizlife. And I promise that even with all of the Facebook groups closing, we are still here. We are still active and we are still
open for
fun.
business.
Exactly. So thank you guys so much. And we'll see you again next week.
This was Small Biz Life.